Hello and welcome, PocketWatch here, and it's about time for another episode of Fata Morgana, and we are going to continue with the short stories, so let's go! The Revenant's Dream. But what it's going to be honest, I don't know. I have no idea what I mean, say. But who is this? Farewell, Jacopo. Morgana? It seems like it's, there's dream kinda sequence with Morgana and Jacopo, like it was a tree and golden wheat everywhere. Until souls cross paths once more in the boundless sphere of fate. Yeah, this is Morgana. Goodbye, Morgana. Oh, this is both of them. She believed that was the end of it all. That by releasing their souls from the curse, they would all return to their rightful places. That the realm containing the cursed mansion would dissipate, and the natural order of the world would take care of the rest. Both she and the good-hearted young man who had guided her to her salvation believed that. This is right after Mansion disappeared. But the young man underestimated how strong his love was. And the girl underestimated how wholly and thoughtfully he blamed himself. He sent her off and then remained in place. Could not forgive himself for what he had done, and so he did not deserve to move on. The Revenant's Dream. Okay. Next thing she realized, she was in the field of gold. Wheat rolling in the wind like the golden ocean. The sky blue as sapphire. The breeze almost strangely warm. It was an unbelievable gentle view, and one she did not recognize. She had never seen this place before, never been there before. Yet, looking out at it now, she felt emotional. It was almost terrifyingly beautiful, as if drawn in by it, the girl looked at a step forward. With each subsequent step, the soft sound of crunching beneath her feet grew more distant. Evidently, her soul had begun taking physical form, and was her body from the life that the golden ocean created for her. She raised her left arm, which had been severed before she was placed in captivity. It was whole. Still uncertain, she placed a hand on her cheek, that she found none of the scars or the rough texture of the markings that had caused her so much torment in life. What's going on here? So, Morgana moved on, but Jacopo left her basically, keeping tormenting himself. So Jacopo did something kinda similar to Didier? Like Didier attached himself to the mansion too, basically. Cursed himself. Right? She was perplexed. Where was this place? When was this? And what was she doing here, in that form no less? The girl continued walking in spite of her consternation, and in spite of herself at that. It was the gentlest domains that had always caused her the most pain. The most pleasant memories were the sharpest knives. If her life had taught her one thing, it was that. And from that then on, she had done everything in her power to eliminate those things. Which is why she had locked the warmly inviting master bedroom in the cursed mansion, and threw the key into the painting. Okay, so I misremembered that. I thought that was Giselle who, the maid. Wait, I'm confused? I thought it was maid who threw the key into the painting. Because she didn't want to open the bedroom. Because that was the memory of Michelle and stuff. Wait, did I remember something wrongly? But now she was being drawn into another such realm. She felt as though she needed to push forward. And soon as she approached the far edge of the wheat field, she caught sight of the figure. Seeing it, she stopped dead with a gulp. She knew what this word was. It was his word. Much like she had crafted her own realm to contain her curse, he too had built himself the world of the illusion. Okay. Upon reaching his realization, a flood of images and memories rushed over her. And this was not unusual, as she had experienced projections of others' memories in the cursed mansion as well. The living and the dead perceived the world differently. For while the living were bound by their bodies, the dead were bound by the recollections and emotions. Nonetheless, it had been Michelle, not her, but the dived into the memories directly. So this was her first time truly experiencing the phenomenon herself. Though she was uncertain as to whenever the experience was intensified by her own involvement in the specific memories. They were of her as a child, the young man applying ointment to her face every day for 3 years. She would claim it unnecessary, insult him, complain it in any way she could, but still the young man come back to the next day. Even on days she thought the point of truly angering him, he still applied the ointment. He was a strange man, she thought. For what purpose did he pay her so much mind? Another man wanted to get near her. These hideous scars covering her face were quite an effective deterrent, and most would probably cut off their own hands before volunteering to touch them. Her own was different though. One day, he chastised her for making the trek to the graveyard every day, in rain or snow or anything in between. But she realized now that his criticism applied to him as well. The pouring rain or the midst of the blizzard, in wind so strongly they could knock a grown man off the ground, or even when he was hurt or sick himself. He never missed a day, coming to find her at the graveyard. Next, she saw the rising sun, being carried on his back, traveling different path home than the one she knew. Yes, that was the best scene. The stench of decomposing flesh, unavoidable in alleys of the slums, her surroundings utterly repugnant, yet the sunrise oddly enchanting. Sun's light even reaches this deep, dark corner of the world. I mean, of course it does, but I don't know, for some reason it seems particularly bright today. She said nothing in response, but she felt the same. She had spent her whole life looking down at her feet, never taking the time to look up and appreciate the sky. And she likely never would have either. Never been able to see the beauty in the rising sun without a nudge. And subsequently whenever the evil lord would show himself in her dreams, was able to close her eyes and block him out, until eventually she was no longer able to remember his face or the sound of his voice. Oh, I didn't know that she actually managed to block out his memories and forget about this, like entirely. Maybe not entirely, but she was able to like fight this off. Okay, good. Her wounds were at last beginning to heal. He had given her so much, an ordinary life and ordinary happiness, the freedom from having to be special, and warmth she had never known before. But those memories only served to salve her wounds. Every image of the slave boy showing her kindness was undercracking her foundation. I can't, he killed me. Yeah, that's the problem. With the same hands it used to treat her wounds, he later took her life. It tainted all her memories, shattered the illusion of warmth, ruined her all the way down to her soul, turned everything into hatred and anger. fury, that intense that even the young saint unconditional love was insufficient to assert it. The only reason she had managed to maintain her composure at the very end was because Michelle was there with her, holding her hand. She would not have gone to see him at all otherwise, but now she was alone, so she would leave. She had no interest in saying that man again, and when she made the head back the way she had come, she got a glance at the shadowy figure condition. It was beaten, broken, crumbling away. Wow, that's Jacopo, isn't it? She looked down in silence on the shadow, which barely maintained its own form. She had seen souls decay at this state before, such as Michel's, when he arrived at the mansion after centuries lost, broken down and reformed again and again, with only Giselle's voice as his guide. But the time he found his way there, he was unrecognizable, hardly a wisp of a spirit incapable of the individual thought, blindly following Giselle's lead. She understood why Michel's soul had taken so much damage. He had been abused and mistreated to an unimaginable degree his entire life. It made sense that he would wish for the ending more permanent than even death. But him... What are you doing so broken? Okay, this is actually interesting short story. Because in like Requiem, we saw in the end that Jacopo and Morgana like left together in this like dream world, basically in this illusion. But seems like that was not the case, so seems like Jacopo just guided Morgana to move on, and at the end he actually left behind, being broken. She couldn't understand what had brought him to this point. He was a perpetrator, a monster, no matter how kind he had been to her before. That did not change what he had done after that. Yeah, but... like... see, this is the perspective, basically. Like, from Morgana's perspective, he's a monster because, like, first he was good to her and then he destroyed everything for her. And Jacopo feels being broken because he cared about Morgana, then he killed her, realized that, and he broken because he knew that what he done was wrong and stuff like this. So he broke off because of his actions as well. So what did he think he was doing, looking so mingled and beaten? Yeah, he can't forgive himself. If she left him there before long his soul would disappear for good, wrapped out of existence, never to return to the boundless sphere of fate. Good, let him. She bit her lip. Yeah, let him. Then she would be free of this torture once and all for all. She would never have to see him again, never have to torment herself with thoughts of him, and what a relief that would be. So she tried to turn back, but her body would not let her. Emotion she did not understand had welled up in her breast. It was pity. Thought she could not put a name to it herself. It was an emotion she had never felt during her time as the witch. And in fact, were the witch here, she would have crackled joyously at the sight. Pointing a skeleton finger at the pathetic thing he had become and telling him how much he deserved it. But she was no longer that witch. And furthermore, she had been blessed with unconditional love by Michelle and Giselle. The beloved portion of her soul, which had rent from herself to create the white-haired girl, was beginning to return to its rightful place. Okay. So... you're gonna not forgive him, basically, but you're gonna accept him or something? And now, how do we fix Jacopo from breaking down? I thought she heard a voice from within, telling her that only she could save him. I don't think like she's on the mindset that she would like just straightforward tell Jacopo that she loves him. Like, this is not happening. He caused too much pain to her. This is not going to happen. But maybe like we can fix Jacopo by saying just thank you, I guess, because if you think about this, like, you know, like, she cannot forgive him for what he did to her at the end. But she never thanked him actually for all the good years. She never had a chance to do this. Because the raid happened and they were separated and instantly went into the bad things happening. So maybe Jacopo hearing thank you for what you did before, maybe that would be enough to keep him like together. So he would not disappear, well, he will still not move on probably, but he will not wither away and maybe he will still have a chance to move on. Something like that, you know? So no forgiveness, but like thanking for what happened before the stuff. Because that part was still good that he did. Maybe something like that. Why should she have to save him after all the pain and suffering he had caused for her? The voice within spoke. Michelle had stepped forward to save her after all the pain and suffering she had put him through. Giselle too held no grudge after being imprisoned in the mansion by her for centuries, happily joining Michelle on his quest. She took a single step forward. The witch swayed as she did, making the scene even more dreamlike. Initially she had been irritated to find him here, trying to hide from his sins in the realm of illusion. But now she was beginning to realize that was not the case. His memories and feelings flowed over her with more clarity this time. That was what he could have had if he had not made all those mistakes. And this was the place he had hoped to show her one day. Ah, he was not hiding from his sins. He was attempting to atone for them. He had condemned his sins, lamented his failures, and forced himself to look at this vision of the world he had let slip through his fingers. Oh my god, yeah, that's painful. Oh god. Again and again, until it had destroyed his soul. This was his punishment for himself. Not only for what he had done to Morgana, but her other half, the white-haired girl as well. She had said in the letter that she wished to see his homeland, and it failed to see that through as well. Twice he had broken what he was supposed to care about most. Twice he had crushed her, and he could never forgive himself for that. Not even after she had released him from the curse. Well, you truly are the biggest fool in the world. She had never, in all her time, seen more of the disaster of the man. Now she was beginning to realize that part of the reason he had done this to himself was because she had rejected his offer to make amends. Told him she would not punish him any further. Not to mention, he was not entirely at fault for his actions in his second life. Yeah, that was your curse, basically. That is actually a good point. She had wished to see his life in ruins. She had in a sense placed him on that path herself. And he was not the one who could place the blame for his actions on others. Yeah, everything was always his responsibility and his alone. He was like this in the first life and his second, and in the illusionary alternative scenario when Michelle intervened. Ultimately, I'm the one responsible, he said in their march to atonement. I suppose, to make sure the next lives go a little better, he said, excluding himself from any potential redemption. So what though? It doesn't change what he did. Are you saying I should have sent him off with a smile? That I should have set aside my hatred to men who hurt me a little better? She took another step towards the amorphous shadow, still unsure of her own position. The closer she got, the more she wanted to run away, What would she say? What would she do? She had not an inkling of an idea, not a single fully formed thought about what came after this. The shade noticed her, lifting its head. She tensed up. It was hideous, hardly recognizable as human. But she could tell somehow that it was smiling at her. Probably. It must have been made up of all the things he'd wanted to do for her, she thought. The shade seems to think she was part of the illusion. In that case, she thought. In that case, she could just play along with it. Oh wow. Wow. What a play. Pretending she was another phantom in the dreamscape would reduce the pressure on her, giving her time to think. But on the other hand, that would probably shatter him faster because he would think like, yeah, this is the image that is tormenting me and this is not real. So I'm not sure if that's actually the best approach. Though in truth, she actually wanted to indulge in the fantasy herself. The long lost possibility of nothing going wrong and him finding their homeland. Even knowing it was all sham, an insignificant silver of dream, she probably still wanted to partake in his warmth. Maybe then she'd be able to give him a genuine smile. So what's the agenda for the day? Initially, she only intended to play along with illusion. But in the time, she found herself being drawn into the dream world as well. Fantasy where he had never become the Lord. She never the witch, and that both of them lived uneventful lives in their undiscovered homeland. It was pleasant and peaceful, and she soon began enjoying getting nearness. She had turned off her mind, simply stared at accepting things as they happened. Which she was only able to do because he was hardly recognizable as him. She felt like she had really gone back to being a 16-year-old girl. Like she had grown up a normal life, not filled with tragedy. Though how wonderful that would have been if it could have been true. He asked her to sing for him, so she brought him into the shade of the lunch tree. He told her he had borrowed a lute, but he held nothing more for his hands, so she merely played along. So, wait. This is the same scene we had in the Requiem? But from other perspective? Like, this is from Morgana perspective, basically. Like, Morgana seeing what this world really is. And other, like, from Requiem perspective, it was like Jacopo perspective mostly, as he sees everything as imaginary dream. Not even recognizing that Morgana's soul is actually here. And Morgana seeing that he's shattered. Like, this is like the perspective thing, this is the same thing. I don't remember if we had, I think like we had the loot scene in that Requiem scene. You can remind me in the comments, but I think it's the same. It's just different perspective. In his vision of this realm, there were other like us for him to borrow from. They sat down in the shade of the tree and sang, only her voice to carry to the tune. Like Michelle in the same condition, the shade was barely able to produce any coherent sound at all music. But still, she could tell what he was trying to say and how he was saying it. The longer she spent in the realm of illusion, the more her own state of mind reverted to those days. 3 years when she had been able to experience happiness, like anyone else, yeah. But continuing until she reached the age of 16. She was smiling and laughing, though she hardly realized it herself, nor did she recall that she had explicitly told him previously that she could not smile for him. In time, she even found herself able to speak of the younger days, something she had not told him even in life. How she was known as the saint, how her blood had miraculous powers, and the people of her village began worshipping her for it. She had on some level wanted to talk about that within him in life. Yeah. I guess so. Wanted to open up herself to him more. Yeah, she always locked these things up. Never been truly open with him. Wanted him to know more of what she really was. You are just an ordinary girl. He spoke in an unearthly voice, like thousands of rocks scraping against one another. Yeah. But to her ears, it was the sound of the young slave man's voice. His slight, exasperated, always gentle tone. She smiled. You've said this as much so many times now, I was beginning to believe it. She said, wondering if he would have been the one to give her warmth if things had gone differently. Obviously, but that was a hypothetical future, and one they could have never reached, no less, yeah. But she had softened up enough to entertain such silly fantasies. She had also thought about her homeland. Not the small isolated village where she'd been born, but someplace further up her bloodline. Her real father's home. Oh. Oh, yeah. The real father's home. Yeah, like... Huh. Interesting. Interesting choice. Her father home. Instead of the village. Huh. Would you like to meet him? Just telling him of her father when he suddenly asked her that. She was not sure, and she racked her brain in consideration. It was not something she really needed to think about. There was no family here for her to find more after all. But she had indulged herself in deeply in the past, that reality was not a concern. She spoke of her father with a hint of sadness in her voice, to which the shade responded with a sudden surge of rage. The whole dreamscape wrapped around him. The metallic smell of blood permeated the region. What the hell? Why? Wanted to seek out her father and met out divine justice, and the world twisted to fit his image. Okay, makes sense. He just escaped, basically. Any form of violence is forbidden, she shouted, attempting to calm his fury. Not even if it's for my sake, she continued. Any time she had managed to obtain any form of power, it had led him... He had managed to obtain any form of power. It had led him down the path of destruction. He knew no other way to wield it, and because doing so had shown to be effective in accomplishing his immediate goals, he never bothered to look for any other solutions. Well, yeah. Goddammit, Jacopo. Which ultimately resulted in him being unable to trust anyone, because he only understood power as a blunt object. He was soft, cowardly man deep down, but because he learned to kill. I don't want you to hurt anyone else ever again. The more he hurts others, the more he hurt himself. That was the lesson. This was a lesson that was long overdue for him. The shadow stared at her in silence for several minutes. As the blood and fury rage twisted the illusionary realm slowly receded. When it was gone, the shade too seems to have returned to normal, nodding and saying, "Alright, I won't." She let out a sigh of relief. She had slipped entirely back into her childhood. They talked more about everything and nothing, such as Midsummer Festival, the memory of which filled her with yearning for those times when everyone was still together. Him, his friend Maria, his companion Gratian, and the eternally cheerful Tseren. She was never terribly fond of the gathering of that many people, and that had not changed even now. She was able to reminisce about it, admit that it had not been entirely awful, that it had been an important formative moment of her youth, and probably the same for the rest of them as well. Three girls holding hands and dancing in the circle, him playing a tune on the lute, and his friends providing a beat. It was a marvelous day. As she reflected, she realized he had been chasing over ambitious dreams from the very beginning. All the talk of going out into the world and taking her with him, and he was no different here in the realm of illusion. Eventually, she grew tired of hearing his fantasies, telling him climb down off your high horse and just. If he was going to keep chasing after her stupid dreams, she would laugh at him every time. If he was going to keep chasing after impossible ideas, she would drag him back down to earth. That way he would never. Then, I'll just have to find a new dream. Wait, excuse me? What? Her mouth hung open in a mixture of desperation and shock, and perhaps a trace of anger. She wanted to shout, to tell her how all these idiotic dreams ended with him in shambles. But he seems unable to pick up the trepidation, continuing unfazed. I'm going to win your heart. Ah. She stood aghast. That was the last thing she expected to hear from him, even knowing this whole world was fantasy about he wished he could have done for her. She was conflicted. Well, yeah, no shit, she's conflicted. She felt so many things, but fluttering was a line that would never cross. But fluttered was a line that she would never cross. No matter how much she had reverted to her younger self here, her present self still remained. You murdered me. There's nothing you can do to win my heart, not a single thing. She found herself very close to saying what she felt, but she set her agitation aside to let the dream continue a bit longer. Her own peace of mind, more than his. From that point, he became almost impressively brazen, even asking her to call him by his name, to which she frowned and said, in no uncertain terms, why would I waste my breath? Visibly it's hurting him. After some time having to watch him mope, she could bear it no longer and attempted to raise a new subject. But whenever she asked him about learning to play the lute or going fishing together, the only response she received was a half-hatred nod. Aww. She sighed at the complete loss. Okay? And then the shadow spoke. Will you say my name? Again. How was he so fixated on such stupid insignificant thing? It is important. Names are important. But as he continued, she realized his request was more pitiful and hurtful than she had ever heard from him. I don't want you to forget, she gasped. I want you to forget me again. The old me, the good me. Not the bad me. Cracks developed in the shadow. I want you to forget what I look like. It waved, shook, crumbled. The sound of my voice. But still, he pleaded desperately. Or how I feel about you. When refused to lean on anyone, who is begged for her validation. I want you to forget what we talked about. They were all things. She had long since forgotten about him. What kind of man I was. Things she had locked away in the deepest recesses of her mind. Or all the time we shared together. Memories overflowing with so much warmth in her heart. Please. She cast it all out. His name, his face, his everything. Don't forget me. Which was what had allowed her to make him for the Lord. She felt a chill listening to the shade beg and plead endlessly. What was she supposed to do here? At the very least, this meant the end of this peaceful, trouble-free illusion. Why would you ask me that now? She said, her voice strained. I was hoping to bask in the illusion a while longer. The shadow said nothing. It simply sat there waiting for an answer. She mulled over the question for a while and took another step towards it. She was close enough to touch it now. She would never do that. A feeling well up in her breast. A mixture of wanting to scream, burst into tears and throw things around like a small child. Okay, this is not the same scene that is in Requiem. I was totally wrong. Never mind. She forced it back, looking down the shade. If I had remembered, would anything have been any different? Could we have not ended up so far down the wrong path? If I had gone and found you, would that have stopped you from becoming what you did? There was 1,000 things she could have done differently. If after taking up the cottage and the lake, she'd gone into town even once, she would have found out that they had a new lord. Yeah, maybe she was the one who had sent that night to visit. Maybe he was the one who sent that night to visit her cottage. Yep. Who she had sent away without talking to. Not to mention, if she had only told him about her childhood, the rumors about her blood having healing powers, he would have been able to make the connection between her and the Lakeside Witch. That is also the good point. That this secret also made it that he never thought that the witch in the cottage could be her. If she had done something, maybe she could have stopped him from wearing off the straight and narrow. In fact, she was likely the only person who could have stopped him. I am blaming myself for his mistakes. He's the one responsible for his choices. She did not know what to do. She had been at a loss even since learning the truth. The answer had only brought her more pain. And so she had buried them away somewhere out of sight. Yeah, that must be why. That must have been why she had not yet returned to her rightful place. Why she had been brought unto salvation by the hands of the angel, ceased being the witch. The girl inside was as wounded and suffering as ever. Can I hold your hand? The shade resumed its pleading. Its desperation clouded her chest, and so rather than coldly denying the request, she found herself saying, "Do as you please." The shadow slowly extended its hand up to hers, as if scared. It was not playing its part very well. This was supposed to be a dream, where nothing had gone wrong between them after all. But the illusion had begun to give way to harsh reality. The reality of having murdered the girl he loved. The reality of having been brutally abused and killed by the man she had leaned on for support. They had both cared for each other in a very similar way. Yet, the end result was not love, but terrible tragedy. Yeah, that sucked. I was terrified to show someone affection with hands that only ever brought destruction. And so before he did, he said, "I promised I wouldn't touch you without permission." That he did. She knew it was just an excuse though, and he was simply afraid. Worried about putting his bloodied hands on her. That he might hurt her again. That he might corrupt her. That he had no right to. But he overcame all that gently placing his arms around her. He had been waiting centuries for this moment. It was an embrace of many things, love for her, deep regret, and the most all, atonement. He wanted to do this. In his arms, she could feel everything he felt. So the day allowed his soul in that mansion. She thought back to the time, the unfathomable amount of time she spent as the witch, a force of pure hatred and vengeance. It was the last soul she entrapped. And when she did, it was a little more than that amorphous shadow. Oh, right. If you think about this, all these people that she cursed, they were actually shadows. They were cursed in like perpetual place, or they could never escape. And they were shadows. Like the people that we saw behind doors were like their next lives, but their souls themselves, these were the shadows. that Michelle met later on. Right. True. It took many years for him to regain a human form, but even then he was unable to move or speak. He simply wailed something incomprehensible to her again and again. At the time, I thought he was saying how much he hated me, that she was wrong. He had simply wanted to atone, he had no idea how. Look at you, Groman, shaking like a fawn. As the shadow embraced her, it trembled, sobbing loudly on her shoulder. She had never seen him cry before. Though she was unsure if this counted, since she could only feel it with the nebulous shade. Sometimes I can't tell if you have a heart of stone or of glass. Her entire body went limp. All the tension in her nerves released at once, and she felt like a massive weight had been lifted from her shoulders. I suppose I'm not terribly different in that regard. Ah, yeah. That can also be the case, true. I won't even speak my heart unless there's no one else around. Unable to face you except through this childish fantasy. Not even able to show any vulnerability. Maybe she hated to even entertain the thought. But perhaps they were more similar than she wanted to admit. Sometime long ago, in the memories she had banished away, he told her that being close made people more open to each other. And it turned out he was right about that. She began to speak, to tell him the truth of how she felt, letting spill forth the raw pain within, holding nothing back. She told him how she despised him more than anything in the world, because he showed her happiness. Then the depths of despair, that she had no idea what to do with him, how she did regret some of her actions, such as misdirecting her anger. He was consumed by regret over what he had done to her, but he was not the only one who had regrets. As their minds and spirit intermingled, the shape of her wound grew apparent. Also, by the way, I wonder how long this is, because today is like first day when I like kind of forced myself to sit down and record stuff, because past 3 days my whole like day process, like my whole like, you know, functioning was work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep. I did not boot up PC, record anything, and I would like to sleep already. I'm pretty tired, and I'm wondering how long this chapter is. I thought like it's going to be 20 minutes. I'm not sure how long I'm recording actually. It feels like it's an hour, but I'm not sure. Maybe, I don't know if you could hear that my voice. It's kinda hard to speak to, but I will preserve somehow. He had hurt her, but she had hurt him too. She had blamed him, not only for his own sins, but for the sins of the other man as well. True, she blamed him for what Barnier did too, because she cursed him as the Barnier. Yeah, like in her mind, basically, he was Barnier from the beginning. Like, she's blaming him for like what Barnier did to her before too. And for that, she had laughed at him, cursed him, mocked him for trying to show something resembling care for another human being. Again and again and again and again and again and again and again. I should have known better than anyone how much he was capable of caring, though. She fought back to the decisive moment. Knowing the truth now, she finally understood the full effect of the things she had said. To an even greater degree than Michelle had told her. She had told the man who had spent 3 years looking after her coming to only apply ointment to her scarred face, rain or snow. She despised him with all her soul. That he ruined her life. She had not been seeking clearly at the time, but he had been tethering on the edge as well. They're saying that, I mean, the final push. Yeah. Like, she said that to him after she got captured. Like, Jacopo didn't know who is the witch. Yukimasa basically cut off her arm, which was also not the part of plan. And I think Yukimasa made a big part in this too, because with her arm cut off, basically, she lost blood. It's harder to think, definitely, with a blood loss, right? And she was in pain, couldn't see clearly, and yeah. The rest was the story that we know. And that was the part where he actually became like full Barnier mode. I mean, Odilon started like being Barnier as like, you know, kind of tyrant, like death of the Odilon, but like what Morgana did basically pushed him like over like total edge to become actually like blood obsessed basically and stuff. But yeah, there was basically no other way around this at that point. It was my words that ultimately pushed you over the edge, wasn't it? How had it all end up like this? Why did they have to hurt each other so much? Did they? So we're now third person perspective. What was the return point that sent them so far off the path? He continued holding to her for some time, pleading for the chance to make amends, spilling his heart, clinging to her like the little child. It was something he could have never done in life, or even in death. It was only after repeatedly crushing himself beneath overwhelming regret, until he was mangled and hardly recognizable, that he was able to show her this weakness, and he was able to show her his tears. But it was far too late. It was all over. Nothing he asked for something she could give him. No matter how much he begged, she could never stop hating him, could never forgive him. Pictures began to form in her spirit. Memories of her youth brought with them emotions long lost. At the time, she first directly acknowledged his kindness. It was bitter, sweet, agonizing, suffocating, innocent feeling. Many ages ago, when I was still a child, I looked up to you. The sunrise she saw that morning carried on his back only seems as beautiful as it did because he had shown it to her. Best scene in the whole Requiem. She then grew to yearn the lost homeland he spoke of, admire his lofty dreams, and felt warmth in his hands as he spread the ointment. That was when the seed was planted, not only for the ability to feel joy, but love as well. I might even had some fondness for you. And having said that, she noticed the clear droplets rolling down her cheeks. After Michelle finishing unveiling the truth, she shouted, "I cried for him," in frenzy. And those tears she had shed continued all her feelings for him. On the day of her 12th birthday, that terrible tragic day, she cried and told the man in the slave cart, "I'm sad because I don't get a chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me." And that was true. Yeah. She was grateful to not only the young slave man, but the girls of the brothel as well. She had wanted to open up to them, but a larger portion of her tears were for just one person. She cried for him. She cried for the man who had spent so long trying to help her. She cried because She had not been able to thank him. She cried because she believed him to be dead. She cried for him then. So who did she cry for now? Were those tears for him as well? Were they for herself? Well, probably for both of you. You're both fucked up on different, like, levels. In different timelines. I mean, not timelines. At different times. No, therefore the both of them, yeah, pretty much, like I said. She decided to let the illusion continue on a while longer. She knew it was foolish, she had mixed feelings about being here, interacting with him as she had when she was younger. But she had softened up enough not to simply ignore the warmth it also made her feel. She had found it in herself to accept the seed of kindness sprouting within her. She had found it in herself to acknowledge how he felt. So, she would use the dream to lead him into the next destination, under the guise of him holding her hand and leading her out of the clouds of this foolish fantasy to be released once and for all. Aww. She would guide him back to the void, to the boundless sphere of fate, so that he may live again. Oh, this is awesome, actually. Wow, Morgana. They set off through the fields of waving gold. She squeezed her eyes shut, envisioning the young man she once knew. And when she opened them again, he was there holding her hand and softly smiling at her. Maybe this is the part from Requiem? Now it starts? We just didn't have this part in Requiem? I'm confused. I mean, not confused, but I'm just keep wondering if there is correlation between the Requiem scene and this scene. Maybe now we see the Requiem thing. Because they were like walking like hand by hand there. But maybe now is the part from Requiem. Maybe not, but just keep wondering, you know? You know, Jacopo, I really hope we don't ever cross paths again. Nothing good could possibly come from us meeting in the next life. I'm tired of having to deal with you. I hate you, and I pray never have to see you again. But should you wish to see me, and should that wish take priority over my own, promise you will treat me well. If you can manage that, then fine. If you can, I will be with you. I will stay with you. I will allow it. Something like that. Okay, that was very cool. Short story. I don't know if it was actually that short. It felt like it was over an hour. I don't know how long it was actually. But yeah. Very interesting side story. I like that. I like that one. I wonder if like actually Jacopo and Morgana will like ever meet actually in like the modern days, because we know that Jacopo got reincarnated, but we haven't seen them yet meeting. So I wonder if that's going to be possible or not. But yeah, this is it for this episode. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next one, so click that like button. If you like the episode, subscribe for more. Check my Discord and become a member if you'd like to support me and see the episodes earlier. I cannot speak. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. So for Pocket Watch is going out.